It began as a railroad strike, but fueled by the nation's first great industrial depression, it became a nationwide rebellion. 80,000 railroad workers walked out. Hundreds of thousands of working people soon followed. Its battles left over 100 Americans dead, hundreds more wounded. The great uprising, intensity, and scope shocked America. The railroad had placed the United States on the threshold of industrial supremacy. But by the summer of 1877, the railroad aroused bitter resistance. Something had gone terribly wrong. Philadelphia, 100 years after America declared its independence, its citizens flocked to the Centennial Exposition. Thousands gathered to mark the Republic's resilience following a bitter civil war. They came to admire the country's technological triumphs and celebrate its territorial expansion. At the center of this century of progress, the American railway system. The railroad had promised to unite the once divided nation and benefit all citizens. Chinese and Irish immigrants, as well as Civil War veterans, were set to work as the country enthusiastically committed itself to railroad construction.
When me and my mates get our sturdy sledgehammers going, we make a kind of grand anvil course across the plains. 3 strokes to a spike, 10 spikes to a rail. Let's see, I got it figured out. 400 rails to a mile, 1,800 miles to bloody San Francisco, and that makes, by my reckoning, some 20 million or so times we'll swing these sledges before this great work of modern America is done.
In 1869, the golden spike was finally hammered into place. The Transcontinental Railroad system unified America. The poet Walt Whitman sang its praises. Thy black cylindric body, golden brass and silvery steel, type of the modern, emblem of motion and power, pulse of the continent. The railroad connected farmlands, towns, and cities. It moved goods, information, and people. In 10 short years, railroad mileage doubled. Federal and state governments sponsored the railroad expansion, giving the railroad nearly 200 million acres of public land, as well as millions of dollars in loans and tax breaks. Railroad owners, notably New York Central President Cornelius Vanderbilt, amassed staggering wealth. His son William inherited $100 million upon Vanderbilt's death in 1877. In that year of severe economic depression, a decent day's wage was $1.50. Railroad owners' wealth translated into unimagined power. Tom Scott ran the Pennsylvania Railroad, the nation's largest business enterprise. From his Philadelphia headquarters, Scott controlled the lives of workers and communities across the country. He manipulated state and federal legislatures and even presidential elections. Such domination led Charles Francis Adams, son and grandson of presidents, to observe,
"The system of corporate life is a new power for which our language contains no name. We have no word to express government by moneyed corporations."
This wealth and power seemed to many Americans to transform the very structure of society and undermine their basic freedoms. In June, Scott, Vanderbilt, and other railroad executives secretly met. They agreed to cut their employees' wages, even as they announced substantial dividends for their stockholders. John Garrett, president of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, explained.
The great principle upon which we joined to act was to earn more and to spend less.
On July 15th, the B&O announced a 10% wage cut. Except a brakeman on the B&O line decides this action is too much to take. On the hot, sultry afternoon of July 16th, Zepp steps down from his locomotive. He and his fellow workers stop trains in the Martinsburg, West Virginia rail yards.
No train's gonna move! We got a living wage! Might as well start without workers. Here comes the damn militia. Go home! Stop that black! Don't let him throw the switch!
This is the spark that ignites the great uprising. Soon after, Scott's Pennsylvania Railroad announces its 10% wage cut. The company also fires half its brakemen, flagmen, and conductors. For those remaining, the workload doubles. Pittsburgh, a center for Pennsylvania Railroad traffic. Here the cutbacks arouse immediate opposition.
You see, the Pennsylvania Railroad officials' overbearing manner and their refusal to compromise with their employees has been resented in the city for years amongst all classes of people. Even businessmen have been bitter enemies of the road.
Pittsburgh railroad workers refuse to let trains move. Freight cars, many loaded with perishable goods, begin to pile up in the yard. The trainmen's union demands wage levels be restored and fired workers reinstated. Pennsylvania railroad officials refuse to negotiate.
The strikers have asked for things we can't grant them at all. It isn't worthwhile discussing the matter. What they propose will take the railroad out of our hands.
All opposing this is jargon. It takes two to make a bargain. He who thinks his word should rule is a knave and eke a fool. One won't do. Two, sir, two. It takes two to make a bargain.
Sheriff Hugh Fife's police cannot disperse the growing crowd. Pittsburgh's state militia company is called out, but its largely working-class members refuse to confront the strikers. Philadelphia's militia company is dispatched instead. Meanwhile, in Baltimore, a clash between the Maryland militia and city residents leaves 11 working people dead and 40 wounded. Pittsburgh citizens hear this news as they await the arrival of the Philadelphia militia.
Wouldn't dare do it here! Not even militia!
Thousands of strikers and sympathizers, Irish, German, English, and American-born, jam the tracks.
Not Baltimore.
A strike leader warns the crowd.
The Philadelphia militia will come here as strangers, regarding you as we regarded the rebels during the Civil War. There will be no friendly feeling between you and them. For God's sake, stand back when they arrive.
600 Philadelphia militiamen reach Pittsburgh. The troops march out of the station, led by the Pennsylvania Railroad Superintendent and Sheriff Fife. The soldiers suddenly charge the crowd with their bayonets.